The afternoon sun shimmered against the marble gates of the Whitman mansion when a sharp, cutting voice tore through the air. "Get that man out of here immediately. How dare you touch my grandson?" Dorothy Whitman's words carried the venom of generations of privilege. Her manicured finger pointed straight at Jerome Washington, who was still kneeling beside a small boy in a wheelchair. But Jerome didn't flinch. He had seen eyes like Dorothy's his entire life. Eyes that judged, diminished, condemned. Yet by his side, little David was smiling for the first time in months, swaying his frail arms to the rhythm of a melody Jerome had improvised only moments earlier. Gita moments never announce themselves. They erupt when least expected, turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. And before we dive deeper into this life-changing story, make sure you hit that subscribe button on Orbit Glow so you never miss these powerful tales of transformation. David's voice, fragile yet defiant, broke the tension. "Grandma, he was teaching me to dance." But Dorothy's fury only grew. She pressed the intercom, summoning security as if Jerome were a criminal intruder rather than a man who had given her grandson a spark of joy. 2 uniformed guards arrived and stood like stone towers behind Jerome. He rose slowly, dignity wrapped around him like armor, his hands still dirty from his morning's work. "See you later, champ. Keep practicing that song," Jerome whispered. David reached for his hand again, desperate not to lose the first person who had seen him as more than a burden. But Dorothy snapped. "Enough! Security, escort this man off the property." As Jerome walked away, his eyes locked on the mansion's second-floor window, where David's father, Jonathan, watched silently. The expression on Jonathan's face was unreadable, half guilt, half resignation. Jerome recognized the look. A man who knew the truth but lacked the courage to face it. Dorothy's voice followed him to the street. "If you ever show up here again, I'll call the police." But Jerome knew this was not the end. Something inside him had shifted, something Dorothy could never comprehend. The very next morning, Dorothy Whitman was already on the phone, her tone sharp and commanding. "Mr. Morrison, I want that garbage collector removed from this neighborhood immediately. He trespassed and harassed my grandson. Transfer him, or I'll make sure the city reconsiders your contracts." Richard Morrison, supervisor of the city's waste department, knew Jerome well. 10 years on the job without a single complaint. But against Dorothy's influence, his defense of Jerome sounded weak. By Friday, Jerome was reassigned to the industrial district. It was a familiar injustice. One accusation from the wealthy outweighed years of honest work from the poor. That weekend, Jerome couldn't stop thinking of David. The boy's smile had been like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Digging deeper, Jerome searched the Whitman name online. He discovered the tragic accident that had taken David's mother and left the boy paralyzed. Since then, Dorothy had become both guardian and warden, controlling every detail of David's life. Photos told a story sharper than words. Once an energetic, playful child, now a shadow of himself, always under Dorothy's watchful eye. But another discovery caught Jerome's attention. Dorothy herself had founded the Bright Future Foundation, a charity supposedly devoted to disabled children. The glossy brochures boasted millions in donations, yet the financial reports told another story. Funds vanished into administrative costs and consulting fees, routed through shell companies connected to Dorothy's relatives. The more Jerome uncovered, the more furious he became. She wasn't just controlling David, she was stealing hope from countless children like him. On Monday, fate intervened. Jerome received a call from Dr. Patricia Chun at the Children's Rehabilitation Center. "We have a boy refusing therapy. He's lost all motivation. Would you be interested in helping?" Jerome agreed without hesitation. When he entered the therapy room that afternoon, the boy in the wheelchair looked up. Their eyes met, and David's face lit up. "Jerome, you came back." For 3 weeks, Jerome worked quietly with David under the clinic's roof, and Dorothy remained oblivious. He watched the boy's spirit come alive again, not through force, but through music, rhythm, and laughter. David confided truths that cut deep. Grandma says I should stay home because people will laugh at me. She doesn't let me talk about Mom. She says dancing isn't for boys like me. Jerome listened, his anger buried under professional calm, but every word strengthened his resolve. Dr. Chun noticed David's rapid improvement. In 20 years, I've never seen progress like this. But Jerome, something isn't right. The restrictions placed on him feel more harmful than protective. Jerome told her the truth, that Dorothy had once ordered him off her property. Dr. Chun's shock turned into conviction. Then we must document this. His care borders on neglect, but secrets don't stay hidden forever. One Thursday, Dorothy stormed into the therapy room unannounced. Her fury crackled like fire when she saw Jerome guiding David through adapted dance steps. So it's true. You're the garbage man. How dare you deceive this clinic? Jerome didn't falter. I deceived no one. Degree in physical therapy from USC. Specialization in pediatric rehabilitation. Volunteer experience with special needs children. Everything you assumed I lacked. Dorothy's confidence wavered, but she clung to authority. David, we're leaving. These sessions are over. No, David cried, clinging to Jerome's hand. I want to keep learning. I'm happy again. Jerome's voice was calm, but his words were knives. What do you fear most, Mrs. Whitman? That David will heal, or that he'll see who kept him broken? The room fell silent. Dorothy's mask cracked. When Jonathan arrived, summoned by Dr. Chun, Jerome laid the truth bare. Documents, bank statements, and fraudulent invoices spilled across the table. Over $3 million stolen from disabled children, Jerome explained, methodical and precise. Jonathan stared at the evidence, his hands trembling. Dorothy tried to dismiss it as lies, but every page screamed her guilt louder than her words. Mom, did you steal from those children? Jonathan's voice was thick with disbelief. I managed resources efficiently, Dorothy snapped, her authority slipping into desperation. But Jerome had the final blow. Efficient enough to buy a Miami vacation home with funds meant for wheelchairs. David's innocent voice cut through everything. Grandma, did you lie about helping kids like me? It was the one question Dorothy couldn't deflect. Jonathan stood tall, his decision made. Mom, you're done. Out of my son's life, out of our family business. And tomorrow we find lawyers to return every stolen penny. Dorothy's reign collapsed in that instant. 6 months later, Jerome Washington stood at the entrance of his new rehabilitation clinic in Beverly Hills. The very money Dorothy had stolen was now funding free care for 50 children from low-income families. David wheeled into the room daily, his arms strong, his spirit free, his laughter echoing louder than Dorothy's threats ever had. Jonathan, no longer a prisoner of his mother's control, watched his son thrive with gratitude in his eyes. Dorothy faced federal charges. Her empire of manipulation crumbled into dust. Privilege without character, Jerome often said, is nothing more than a house built on sand. He had turned humiliation into triumph, injustice into purpose, prejudice into power. The best revenge isn't anger, he told the children he mentored. It's becoming so capable, so extraordinary, that even your enemies must look up to you. Dorothy once believed she could destroy a man because of his job, his background, his skin. But the world learned a greater truth, that dignity, integrity, and resilience can break empires. Jerome smiled as he watched David dance in his chair, movements filled with joy, courage, and freedom. And in that moment he knew, this was the true GTA of life, the grand transformation against all odds. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Orbit Glow for more powerful tales that remind us why justice always finds its way.